On today's episode, we talk with the U.S. relay team that finished 10th in the world and 3rd in the U.S. at World's Toughest Mudder 2017. My longtime personal friends, Team Fat Boys.
This is the World's Toughest Podcast. Welcome to the World's Toughest Podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's World's Toughest Mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the World's Toughest Podcast.
Welcome back to the World's Toughest Podcast. My name is Will Hicks, and this is day 2 of kickoff week. We've got brand new episodes every day this week to kick off the new season of the podcast, as we look forward to the new Tough Mudder season kicking off on March 3rd in Los Angeles. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my email address is willhicks@gmail.com. I am on Twitter at @TheWillHicks and on Instagram at WillHicks. You can subscribe to our email newsletter by texting the word tough to the number 22828 in the U.S., or if you are non-U.S. based, you can find directions in the show notes. You just need to send an email instead of a text. It's no big deal. Thanks again to Matt Walker from the UK for the heads up there. Thanks, Matt. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can leave a review on iTunes through the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone or through iTunes on any regular computer. A couple news items before we get to our interview, talk to our guests. I was looking at the Tough Mudder competitive calendar for this year. That's 4 race series. TMX, the Tougher Mudder Championship Series, Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. I'm not sure exactly when, but within the last month or so, Tough Mudder has made a few notable changes to 2 of those races. World's Toughest Mudder and Toughest Mudder are the same as they have been. World's Toughest is November 10th and 11th in Atlanta. There are 8 Toughest Mudder races, 4 in the U.S., 3 in Europe, and 1 in Australia. No changes there. But Tougher Mudder. The Tougher Mudder West Championship was scheduled for June 9th in Tahoe. It is now scheduled for June 16th in Whistler, British Columbia. The best Columbia. The TMX Championship was scheduled for July 15th in Minnesota. It was in Minnesota last year. They're going to bring it back. It is now scheduled for June 8th in Virginia. Those changes mean the Tougher West Championship at Whistler is the same day as Toughest Mudder UK in Scotland on June 16th. They have another day with 2 big events on May 19th. Toughest Mudder Australia and the Tougher Mudder East Championship will both be happening that day, May 19th. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the live coverage on Facebook with events going on so close to each other on the same day. Toward the end of last year, in 2017, Tough Mudder began to air live race footage and commentary on their high-level championship series, their competitive series races. They started doing this after all of the toughest races had already been run. So the only races that were on Facebook Live were or Facebook Watch, were the Tougher Mudder Championship Series and World's Toughest Mudder. In fact, the coverage of the races, of the championship races, I think is kind of a chicken and egg thing. They announced the Tougher Championship Series so late in the year that it seemed like there was more to it. Why did they wait until it was like September when they announced, hey, we have these championship races coming up in October and the first week of November? I think what happened is Tough Mudder and Facebook got together and made a deal. Tough Mudder said, we'll create these races for your Facebook Watch product if you do this for us. Maybe Facebook paid Tough Mudder just cash. Maybe Facebook paid for the camera crews. We don't know the details, but I think it was probably similar to how TMX came about, with CBS wanting a shorter more compact race for TV. And Tough Mudder's saying, hey, what about this TMX thing? CBS says, yeah, let's do that. And it just so happens to work out well for Tough Mudder that the exercises that you need to be able to do well at TMX are taught at the brand new Tough Mudder boot camps. Tough Mudder boot camp is their answer to CrossFit. Small, compact gyms with a name that's not a gym. You know, I really think there is room for both Spartan and Tough Mudder, you know, in the next 5-10 years. And Spartan's really good at what they do, but Tough Mudder just killed it in 2017. Killed it. I think it's good for Tough Mudder to have Spartan Race out there as competition to keep Tough Mudder honest and on their toes, but they need to step up their game in 2018. Tough Mudder's been killing it lately. Sorry. Sidetracked. Back to those 2 dates with the programming conflicts. One of those 2 dates is June 16th. The Tougher Mudder West Championship in Whistler will probably start at 7:45 for the men and 8 o'clock for the women. That's Saturday morning. The top men's times will probably be about an hour and 15 minutes. The top women will probably be about an hour and 30. These are estimates. It depends on the course. Whistler's a hard course. So the top men, well, let's just say they're going to finish about 9 a.m. Whistler time, which is 5 p.m. Scotland time. The top women will finish about 9:30 Whistler time, which is 5:30 p.m. Scotland time. So Team HQ will have a 6.5-hour gap between the end of Tougher Whistler and the beginning of Toughest Mudder Scotland at midnight that night. It'll be way more hairy on May 19th. The Tougher Mudder East Championship in Philly will start at, again, probably 7:45 Saturday morning for the men. That's 10:45 p.m. Saturday night at Toughest Mudder Australia near Brisbane. So the tougher men in Philly start at 7:45. Tougher women start at 8. Like Whistler, the top men will probably be about an hour and 15 minutes, course dependent. Top women will probably be an hour 30. So the top men are going to finish about 9 a.m. Philly time or 12 midnight Toughest Mudder Australia time. The top Philly women will finish about 9:30 a.m. Philly time, which is about 12:30 a.m. Australia time. Australia, I know you have multiple time zones like the U.S. Toughest Australia is near Brisbane on the East Coast. I got that. So they're going to have a lot of crossover between the end of Tougher Philly and the start of Toughest Mudder Australia. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that on Facebook Live. Last news item. Tough Mudder rolled out a picture of the 2018 Holy Grail. It looks pretty much like the picture of the Holy Grail did last year, although last year they didn't actually give you a Holy Grail that looked like that picture. It ended up being a clear beer stein, which it was nice. It was fine. It's just people were expecting more like what the picture was. The Grail this year, as far as we know now, will look like the picture did last year, which is what it looks like this year. It's a black cup with sharp triangular edges along the rim of the glass, kind of like a crown. Those triangles are filled on the outside with blue, yellow, and orange triangles to represent the 3 races you need to complete to earn the Grail. A Tougher Mudder, a Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. Before we talk with our guests, let's read some iTunes reviews. First review comes from JM4292. JM writes, "Pure awesomeness, 5 stars. I look forward to every episode. Love the content, love Will's voice." Aw, thanks, JM. I love your voice. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I've ever heard your voice. I don't know if you're a man or a woman, JM. Anyway, thanks for the kind words. Next review comes from Scarlett KH. Scarlett KH writes, "Thanks, Will. 5 stars. I love the podcast and listen to one every day while at work. It helps keep my mind in the mud so I can stay focused on my WTM training." Thank you, Scarlett. I don't know if you've heard me say this before, Scarlett, but that's one of the reasons I started the podcast. But for myself, Every October, I would hear the other OCR podcasts talking about World's Toughest Mudder. It's coming soon. And I get all hyped up and motivated, and I need to start working out. But by October, it is too late. You're either ready or you are not. So the podcast helps keep me motivated to work out during the year in anticipation of World's Toughest Mudder in November. Thanks again, Scarlett. Last review comes from J-Dub in a Tree. J-Dub writes, 5-star, Tough Mudder OCR content. 5 stars. Participated in my first Tough Mudder this year and got awesome info from this podcast. Listened to the episodes for training motivation and learned a ton of valuable info about the obstacles and community. I listened to a lot of podcasts while driving with my 5-star son. Wait, 5-year-old son. And truly, it's the only podcast he recognizes and smiles about. Dad, is this World's Toughest Podcast? Yes, son. Yes, it is. Keep up the great work. Did you hear that? This guy, J-Dub, listens to World's Toughest Podcast with his 5-year-old son together. And his son recognizes our show and calls it by name. Thank you, J-Dub. I think about that. I have joked before that my mom listens to the podcast. People ask, oh, can I cuss? And I say, my mom listens to the podcast, so keep it clean. But she does. We were having lunch after a funeral last week, and my mom had some thoughts on episode 58 with Ryan Woods and Evan Preparis. She did not care for Ryan Woods' vocabulary at all. I tried to explain the backstory, but she wasn't hearing it. And then this review. I listen to a lot of podcasts with my 5-year-old son. Guys, I know not all of you have kids, and I know none of you, except my mom, care about my kids. But someday, most of you, some of you, will have kids, and it'll make sense then. Maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe not. But this guy, J-Dub, writing about listening to our podcast with his 5-year-old son, and he recognizes it. J-Dub, what does he recognize? The opening music? My voice? The recurring jokes? Anyway, it's not a censorship thing or a clutching at pearls thing. It's a numbers thing. I would rather have more people enjoy the show than less people. And if some of those people are 5 years old, I am thrilled about it. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like J-Dub, Scarlett KH, and JM4292, you can leave a review on iTunes also. Open the Purple Podcast app on your phone and search for Tough Mudder. We're the first one that pops up. Click our logo and then scroll down to click on Write a Review. Let me know what you think about our guests this episode. You can do the same thing on your laptop or desktop. Just search iTunes for Tough Mudder. The rest is the same. Leave us a review and I will read it on a future episode. I appreciate those reviews. Thank you. Today on the show, we're going to talk to 4 friends of mine. In the years since I've started running World's Toughest Mudder, I made a lot of great friends on the course. But these 4 guys, these 3 guys and 1 lady, are friends I've had for years off the course. And I brought them from real life to World's Toughest Mudder. I have known them for more than 20 years. I shouldn't say that because I'm dating myself. But that's okay. No one else is. Hey-o. The 4 people are Nate Swanson, Rachelle Swanson, Joel George, and Scott Forrester. This is a true story. Way back when the 5 of us all worked at a disaster relief crisis response training school near Lake Superior in Michigan. I was a scuba instructor. Nate Swanson was a paramedic. Scott Forrester was a paramedic and scuba instructor. Joel George was staff in leadership, and Rachelle Swanson was on staff as well. Nate and Rachelle actually met there and caught each other's eye. They've been married longer than some of you have been alive. Definitely longer than J-Dub's son. There was a lake on the school property. It was about a 4.5-mile run. and we would usually run it together on Monday mornings before work. There were some girls on staff that would go around the lake the opposite direction as us, and when they got into sight coming toward us, Joel George would speed up so they could see he was the fastest runner of all of us to show he had the best potential as a mate. Joel ended up marrying one of those girls, Lana, and she worked with us in the pit for the team this year. Scott Forrester and I worked together as scuba instructors. One time, he and I lived out of our duffel bags on the floor of a church in Miami for 6 weeks. We drive around Miami all day, teaching special response divers how to recover stolen cars from underwater, or how to find a drowning victim underwater, or a gun someone threw in a lake to get rid of after a crime. And then after a day of work, we drive back to the church to sleep on the floor. Scott also met his wife, Tamara, through a sister program. Tamara was with Lana and I in the pit also. Scott and Tamara live in one of the Carolinas. Nate and I were roommates with Joel George for years. When we finished those lake runs, Nate would take off his T-shirt and wring out the sweat, just like a gallon of sweat. Disgusting. You've never seen anything like it. And then he'd put the shirt back on. Nate is one of the kindest people I've ever met. He was my supervisor for a while, and I learned more from his example of servant leadership, patience, and humility than any amount of books or teaching ever could. Joel, Nate, and I ran together at World's Toughest in 2016 as an unofficial team. We just kind of stayed together the whole time. Scott joined us this year, and we were planning on doing it officially as a national team in 2017. We were signed up and everything until I hurt my leg 2 weeks before World's Toughest Mudder this year. So Rachelle, Nate's wife, stepped up and said, "Don't break up the team. I can do it." Rachelle saved the day, and she did great on super short notice. Now, before you start thinking, oh, 2 weeks notice, and Rachelle ran World's Toughest Mudder, then why should I be training in January? You should be training all year long because you should be training all year long. Rachelle had already been running, and she had super modest goals for her first year. Just because Rachelle Swanson can do it doesn't mean you can do it. Start training now. If you ever see these guys out on a course, you should stick with them for a mile or two and just be with them. I am lucky and honored to call them friends. It's time to talk to Team Fat Boys. Let's go to the phones. All right, Joel George, Scott Forrester, Nate Swanson, and Rachelle Swanson. You guys are Team USA 3 from World's Toughest Mudder 2017. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Feel good.
Doing well.
Joel, this was your second time at World's Toughest Mudder. You and Nate both ran, actually with me, last year in 2016. What did you think coming back, Joel, for your second year?
Well, it was a lot of anticipation. The first time I've ever done anything with the Tough Mudder world and community was in 2016, and the World's Toughest Mudder in 2017 was my second event. So I've only been doing the Worlds, but had a lot of anticipation and preparation for it this year. I think I was better prepared, both mentally and physically, to take it on this year.
So Nate, this is also your second time doing it. Last year we got 25 miles together. This year the team got 40 miles. What was the difference between 25 and 40 miles?
Well, last year we spent a lot of time trying to sleep off our nausea and vomiting episodes. And this year we spent more time out actually working on the course. And I felt like we put out 3 times the effort but didn't get 3 times the results. It just seemed like the course was that much harder for me personally.
You did 3 times as much work in 2017 as 2016.
It felt like it. Yeah, it sure did.
Scott, this is your first year. What did you think of World's Toughest Mudder?
Well, I tell you, I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I thought it was a blast. I had a great time. It was definitely difficult. I didn't really have anything to compare it to. My first Tough Mudder event was just a month earlier at Tough Mudder, Carolina. So that sort of gave me a little intro to what I was getting into. But I don't know. I felt like we had prepared, especially with you guys having run it last year, and Will done it 2 years before that as well. So I felt comfortable that we were prepared for what we got into, and but I enjoyed it.
Rachelle, you kind of saved the team at the last minute. I hurt my leg 2 weeks before World's Toughest, and I couldn't run, and so we were discussing breaking up the team and running solo, or what we could do, and you said, I can do it. How did that come about?
Well, I think Scott said I could do it, and I really thought he was joking. But then when Nate and I talked about it some more, he's like, no, you could totally do it. And I was like, I don't know. I've only just been running since, May in my entire life. So I wasn't sure if I could handle it. But then when I realized, to be able to make the team work, to do the first lap and the last lap, I thought, well, that's a lot of break in between. We could make it happen. But then I ended up doing 3 laps. So it was intense, but it was definitely a new thing. And I wish you could have ran it. You can take my place next year, totally hand it off to you. But it was fun. It was fun.
So you were planning on working pit crew, and then, is that right? And then 2 weeks before is when we made the decision?
Yes. Yep.
What were you going to say there, Joel?
Well, we were delighted to have Rachelle, and she just demonstrated so much courage and willingness to take on something she'd never experienced before. So it was great to have her.
So you guys, are we...
Wow. She's literally telling the truth, because literally she has not been able to run until this year in her life, and it's not that she's just a couch potato, but she only has been running since April last year, and doing a couple 5Ks, and so to do 3 laps was pretty incredible. So there's some people who didn't even do that.
No, I was afraid that I was going to be the weakest link, and cause the team to have to take more penalties. But obviously the course was pretty tough, and for different reasons, we ended up taking a lot of penalties together. So, but yeah, it was something, definitely a new challenge that I would not have probably chosen, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do it. And I really kind of understand a lot more now why Nate was so excited about it last year and why he wanted to do it again. And I just think it's great that the guys wanted to do it together, and it definitely was a bonding experience. So I appreciate them letting me join in at the end.
Was it pretty fun being out there with Nate in a couple laps, or 3 laps?
Oh, well, it was fun. We have ran a little bit together this summer. We ran a couple 5Ks, but this was definitely more intense. And, I was trying to tell him before we left, I'm like, this is hard because I kind of thought I was coming to support you, but now I feel like I have to kind of worry about myself too. So I hope you realize that in some ways you're kind of on your own. But, we were definitely in it together, and I appreciate them letting me tag along, and we did the first lap pretty fast, keep it up in pace, but I don't think I could have done the whole thing as they did. So but it worked out to do the laps the way we did it. And that second lap the first day was good, because I think I would have been afraid, wondering all night, could I do the obstacles? Was I going to be able to handle it? Was it scarier than I thought? But when we did it and I realized I could do it, then the next morning it didn't matter how tired I was. So yeah.
Joel, Nate mentioned the difference in difficulty between the 2 years, 2016 and 2017. What did you think of the course, the difficulty of the course this year?
Yeah, it really was harder for us. Some of the penalty laps or loops were longer. They had that incredible climb after midnight, going all the way up to Ladder to Hell, and just some of the. It was nice in 2016 how they made some aids or some modifications to some of the obstacles to help tired mudders, and that didn't really happen this past year. So that was a little disappointing that as we got more and more tired, we still just had to either try the whole obstacle or just take the penalty. But
actually, they did the opposite. They added harder things as time went on. Like, it's not hard enough for you, so we'll add a little extra penalty or something like that, just to encourage you as you go.
And toward the end of the 5-mile loop, having multiple arm obstacles together, Funky Monkey and Kong Infinity, and the other one, I forget what its name was, but one after the other, they did definitely make it challenging.
Scott, you got to do a regular Tough Mudder kind of as a warm-up or training during the year before World's Toughest. How did that help you prepare for World's Toughest?
Well, I think getting sort of a introduction to some of the obstacles, kind of what might be similar to what they do at Worlds, like the Everest and pyramid skiing, things like that. I wasn't going in blindly. I am grateful that they did not have electric shock therapy, because I did not enjoy that very much. But anyway, I think it did give me a good overview, because I really haven't done anything like this before. So just kind of give me just a good taste, good idea, of, at least a glimpse of what I was getting ready to get myself into.
Scott, you kind of got bit by the bug. We've been talking about you flying out to L.A. next month to run Toughest Los Angeles with me.
Yeah, I got this little motivation trying to keep that momentum going. So I purchased my 3-race ticket, which I'm still waiting for my codes for. But yeah, I'd like to at least do 3 of those. And I've got a couple other races I'm doing this year as well. But trying to keep that momentum going.
Nate, what did you think about the obstacle difficulty this year compared to last year?
Well, there was a lot more that, unfortunately, our team, at least one person couldn't do it. It kind of made us, but I guess back up though, we chose to do our team running differently than the handoff like the other teams did, like a relay, because we don't live near each other. In fact, we live from one end of the U.S. to the other. We all live in different states. We don't live near each other. And so it was our time to hang out together. And so we chose to do our obstacle all together. But that also made it when one person got slightly injured, and Scott had a pectoral pull, and I ended up wrenching my shoulder. Then we ended up not being able to do quite a few of the obstacles. Whereas last year there was only maybe 1 or 2 we couldn't do, which would be the Funky Monkey, and once in a while we couldn't do the double rainbow. But this year there were so many more, and then we just ended up doing a lot of walking. But we all did it together. So the difficulty was certainly higher, and it was discouraging. But we all knew that we were planning to do it together anyway. So, and our point was to hang out and quote unquote enjoy each other's company. So it wasn't totally all bad, and I don't want to emphasize that. I just felt like with the effort we put out last year, we would have got 60 miles, and this year we got 40 for the effort we put out. So that's the only disappointing part. Because it feels like people like us that are not elite athletes are like the majority of the people there, and the elite athletes are the ones getting the 80s and 100s. And so it's a hard combination, I think, to have things that are challenging for everyone, but things that people will enjoy coming back to, even if you're not an elite athlete. And so I felt they kind of like swung the pendulum a little bit the other way this year, and hopefully they'll get back more to the middle next year.
Nate, what do you think about Atlanta 2018?
I don't know. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more different challenges, because although I'm where everyone's getting sick of the rocks and the hills, goopy butt on every single obstacle is going to be an awful different challenge as opposed to running up obstacles that are dry like you do in the desert. So I don't think it's going to be, just because the elevation isn't as high or anything like that, I don't think it's going to be easier because a lot of mud sucks your energy out just like a lot of hills does.
It does. The stuff gets on the bottom of your shoe if you feel like you're 10 pounds heavier.
Yeah, and you're not walking, you're slogging. And then your energy is just soaking in the ground. So I don't know. We've done things like that before, and it's not a lot more fun. I haven't been to Atlanta myself, but having seen that course on the videos, it does look like it could be pretty muddy.
Joel, what's your plan for 2018? Are you going to come back for World's Toughest?
Yep, I already have my ticket for World's Toughest, and so I'm going to definitely work more on grip strength and like monkey bar work beforehand. I did a fair amount of training before 2017, but I didn't do much monkey bar work. So I just want to prepare that way. Running as well, building endurance. And we didn't, like Nate was saying, we planned not to run the course like a relay team. We wanted to do it together. So we took our time going around the loops, but definitely want to build endurance and prepare with running and upper body and all that for 2018.
You guys are at an interesting point because, Nate and Joel, you've done it twice, and you've gotten more mileage every year. You're at 40 miles now, and 50 miles is kind of the goal a lot of people have for World's Toughest Mudder. Scott, what do you think it'll take to jump from 40 miles to 50 miles next year?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think we really did plan well for Vegas. And looking back, I think we definitely had, all the keys to success. The one thing I think that we probably didn't plan for was more recovery time in the pit. I think we had sort of had the mindset of we can't spend all our time in the pit, and then we just kind of ran out of gas at about 4:30 in the morning. Because we definitely had plenty of time to, reach our goal. So, I think this year we'll go in again with, plenty of preparation. Physically, I think we'll all be more prepared as long as we don't injure ourselves. But then on some of those things where maybe we need to spend a little more time between laps, whenever we need to recover better, I think we'll see, even though it's going to be kind of a different, sort of a different ball game in Atlanta, I think we've got the keys for reaching our goal, and we're not going in as first timers anymore. We've all done it, so I think it'll go well.
I think everyone looks back and like, I could have done a little more if I just kept at it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we certainly hit a physical wall, and we felt like our bodies were falling apart at I think it was 5:30 in the morning, but then I don't know if we could have actually rested for a half hour or 45, but I think it ended up to be more like an hour and a half. And we said, well, we're not going to get 50 now, so why kill ourselves for 45 kind of thing?
Right.
We can't do 2 more laps. So if we could, like Scott said, 5:30 in the morning, and Will, you gave us a pep talk at that time. You were our pit man, but it didn't help us feel any better right then. We knew what you were saying, but we're like, oh man, I just gotta lay down for a little bit. My knees are killing me, my shoulders are killing me. We're all old, so nobody mentioned how old this team was. It's an old team. So.
Combined ages, we must have some kind of record.
Well, except for Rachelle, she's not that old, but I was the youngest. I was youngest man on the team at 42, and then Joel's up there, and Scott's higher than that, I think. So we had a lot of years on there. It's not just these young teenagers running around. So,
what do you think about that, Joel? You guys are maybe a little older than average. The average world's toughest athlete out there. How does that play into planning and execution out there?
Well, I think you have to be realistic. We're not in our 20s anymore. We're in our 40s, and And so things are different, and yet we're not. So we know realistically we're not there to compete for the upper prize money, but I think we acquitted ourselves well, and we tried our hardest, and we did. We were there for a good time together, fellowship and be together. So that was a lot of the attraction for me is being with my friends and with those who I haven't seen for a while and who I enjoy spending time with. So it's not all about competition and killing the course. It is also about enjoying each other while we're out there.
Yeah, we didn't win prize money, but we were one of the top 10 teams in the world.
Technically correct.
I mean, don't look at that too closely, but that sounds really awesome. Just don't look at the stats too closely. So.
And you have to say you were hobnobbing with some of the elite, like the next morning. And we got to get Christopher Mendoza in there just so Will can play his tune, hanging out in the hot tub with his parents.
Great.
Getting some renown.
Yeah, and we said, hey, we know Will Hicks. We've known him for 20 years. And they all looked at us like, man, you guys are awesome, and things like that. So how do you know him so long? So,
I've got a question for the rest of you.
Go for it.
Do you all feel, so maybe this is just a personal observation, so I just want to see what you all feel, and maybe Will, if you've got any feedback this way as well. I kind of felt that maybe the TMHQ was not as invested this year as they had been in prior years. For example, not having a carb load dinner, the official dinner with the unveiling of the course. I was a little disappointed not to have kind of a signature obstacle like the giant wedgie in 2016. And, just even making the course harder as opposed to helping out people in the middle of the night. So it just kind of seemed to me that perhaps they were not as invested, maybe already moving on to Atlanta mentally. Have you got any feedback, or do you guys feel the same or differently about that?
Well, I'm not just trying to complain either, but they had this giant stash of bathrooms that was totally illegal for any participant that was in the World's Toughest Mudder to go over and use, because you would look like you're walking off the course. And I'm like, seriously, we can't use those bathrooms? Like, you wanna say you're quitting? And it's like, well, so who are those giant stash of bathrooms for? For pit crew? That was the kind of things that didn't make any sense, and where every single participant is using like the 3 or 4 that are stashed around the whole pit area, and that was rather silly, I thought, and poorly planned. Not just trying to make some complaints, but
Agreed.
When you gotta go, you gotta go. So,
Joel, they did the first 3 years of World's Toughest Mudder were in New Jersey, and then the 4 most recent have been in Las Vegas. And I heard some feedback that maybe they did 1 year too many in Vegas. Like 3 years would have been good to do, and then move on to Atlanta, starting in 2017. So, and even since the very first year I was in Vegas, there was always talk of like, well, where's it going to be next year? Like, no one knew. It was always like, this is the last year in Vegas. It's been the last year in Vegas for like 3 years. So I did hear that, especially with the giant wedgie was like the big surprise that was not there. Or something, similar, that iconic looking giant obstacle that, looks good in pictures and in drone footage. And so, yeah, no, I heard that something or something similar to that from some other people.
We still had a great time together, and it was still awesome to do. It just was not perhaps as whiz-bang and exciting, maybe a little awe-inspiring as it was in 2016.
Do you think some of that's because it was your second year and you weren't as, awed just by being there?
That could be part of it, because it wasn't brand new. And you probably come back the second time thinking it's going to be bigger and better. You have that expectation of yourself to do more miles, and we actually accomplished that. But maybe you think everything else is also going to be bigger and better. And so maybe a little disappointment that in some ways it didn't seem that way.
But I think last year, 2016, you had so many more obstacles that anybody can do, but if you fail them, like, for instance, twinkle toes, anybody can run across the board, but if you fall in the water, you go do a little penalty. And you just and you have all these obstacles that you can try, and you might most of the time get them, and it just, you feel better, and you feel better about your team. Hey, we got this one done. We did it together. Or, some of the ones that you had to do together, and you just feel better. Hey, I got this one done, as opposed to like, and we're walking again, and so you just kind of like, well, is this a big walking course for all these penalties, or are we actually going to have some obstacles that the average athlete can do for 24 hours straight? So
right. It was gratifying even to see some of the more elite contenders walking with us sometimes on the penalty laps, like after Flunky Monkey or something. So even some of the contenders had some struggles.
That's pretty cool to be walking
all the way over to the Arctic Enema with us.
You're walking with some of literally the best
2 miles
in the
out
world.
Of the way.
Yeah, like, some of the women are amazing athletes, and even the guys, like, they get tired after 20 hours of doing it, and they're right there with you, sweating and bleeding and walking. Same course you're doing.
Well, as the newbie, I was pretty blown away. I mean, just the whole experience was pretty overwhelming and enjoyable. I mean, I had a blast, but it just, again, not really knowing what I was getting into as a first timer. That first exposure was pretty overwhelming, and I think that's part of what sparked my interest to kind of keep that fire going, and to do more Tough Mudders this year, and to get me amped for Atlanta next year. One thing I want to mention, our common ground. Of course, we all have known each other for years and years and years, but it's if we're giving credit, really, Will, you're kind of the common factor that has sort of got us all into this and motivated us. I shared a little bit with you, Will, in Vegas, that physically, before I got into this, I was kind of in a state where, I had a lot of joint pain and muscle pain and kind of issues with my hips. And I sort of stopped exercising for a couple of years. And, of course, I'm not getting younger, but I was having a lot of issues. And so just, having a goal like this to work towards and to prepare for has really kind of changed that. And, I still hurt when I run, and I still hurt when I do physical activity, but, even though I'm older than I was this time last year, physically and mentally, I'm younger, I'm more healthier, I'm more active. And, you're really kind of the one that, I have to say is sort of responsible for that, for, introducing us to this and sort of helping to motivate us, through your podcast and, just through a friendship. And just wanted to point that out, and I'm grateful for it too as well.
Well, definitely. Thank you, Scott. You're very kind. I'm just happy it worked out. That I did it 2 years ago with my sister, and it was great, but she wasn't able to come. I did it 3 years ago, I guess, with my sister. 2 years ago, she wasn't able to come, and so Nate and Joel were like, "Yeah, we'll come with you." And then we got the full-fledged team this year, and then I had to bail at the end. I felt pretty crummy, like that. I had to call you guys and say, "Yeah, I messed up my knee 2 weeks before. I was not looking forward to that phone call." So
my wife still doesn't understand the full motivation behind it.
Your wife doesn't get it?
But she came as pit crew this past year, and I know Scott's wife came, and we had a great time. And so she's excited for it and very supportive, even though she doesn't fully understand what makes it all tick.
She's like, "Why do you keep going around again? And why do you go around again? Most races just have one lap."
I may have been guilty of saying that last year. So we had an awesome pit crew.
Made it a lot easier as well. Yeah, I mean, there's no way we could have done that without the awesome pit crew we had, including Will. Yeah.
So yes. I had a great time. This was my first year working as pit crew for World's Toughest, and we had Scott, your wife was there, Joel, your wife was there, and then Nate, your wife, Rachelle, you were on the course maybe a third of the time, and then in the pit crew, in the pit with us, the other 2/3. How important do you think the pit crew was to helping you hit your goals?
Oh, it's huge because we all planned ahead like what we wanted to eat and trying to do the nutrition thing, but you just come in and sit down for a minute and people are running around scurrying and grabbing stuff for you, and they did such a good job of organizing it. Says that when we're on our own last year, we're kind of come in and you're tired and you're digging through coolers or digging through grocery bags trying to find something that looks appetizing, and you just don't get the rest.
I think Lana should win an award for standing in line for hot water as long as she did. So.
How long did she stand there?
I think that one time it was almost like 2 hours she was gone standing in line.
I think one of our pit crew finagled some hot water from one of the local hotels.
Oh, that could be good.
Well, there's no way we could have done this without, an awesome pit crew like that. And then Eric was with us, and his wife helped out as well as pit crew, and I think that was a real key to our success.
And even just coming into your tent and seeing some friendly faces and encouraging you to get back out, it just gives you a little morale booster. There's people back there waiting for you, and they want you to succeed instead of just coming in. You're a lonely person, and you're dealing with the pain all by yourself, and that would be a lot harder.
It is. It's a lot harder. It's way worse. Oh, man. It's a totally different experience. Rachelle, you mentioned that you're happy to next year not run, but what if we were to do a 5-man team or 5-person team? Would you want to jump in there?
I'd have to think about it. After the initial first day soreness and we were all limping around the hotel, I thought, oh, this isn't so bad. And then the day we were going to fly out to come home, my back went out. So that took some time to recover. And then I had that sinus thing, which turned into pneumonia. So, it took me a good month. As a mom of 4 kids, that's a long time to be laid up. So I will give it serious thought, but I will definitely root you on if I decide it's not the best thing for me to do again. But I am 100% backing you, and if I can come in pit crew, that would be great. So we'll see what happens.
We're not sure that the pneumonia was caused by World's Toughest Mudder. I mean, it's very possible that water that we were in so often had some bacteria in it, but it's also possible that there was something going around locally. But it's a toss-up.
It's pretty probable that water had some bacteria in it. That's odds are. Well, awesome.
The coldest water on the course was definitely Snot Rocket.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. It wasn't even next to the lake. I don't know why it was so cold.
That thing was colder than Lake Superior in June.
That was an ice cream headache cold.
Do you guys have any last thoughts on World's Toughest Mudder 2017? Maybe starting with Scott?
Just looking forward to it. I'm excited. Really the year's kind of built around prepping for that, for all the different races, and it'll be fun doing something new in a new location, and I'm just excited. I think we'll do really well this year.
Rachelle, what do you think? Last year, this coming up year?
I'm thrilled that I got the chance, although I really wish you could have done it one more time out in Las Vegas, and I am excited that you will hopefully be able to join them, and whether it's a 4-person team or 5, it's going to be great. You guys are definitely onto something, and I just think it's awesome that you guys can reconnect after all this time and do something that you enjoy and is a challenge, and I think it makes us better people for it too. So,
what do you think, Nate?
Well, I mean, the point of these events is to help you personally meet some goals, and I spent the summer running, and Will, you got us onto that app where you have a little challenge, and And so, different months, different people, one of us would win. But I just wanted to put a little sidebar note here. For people that don't know us, like, I'm a larger person, 220. I was like probably 235 when I started the summer. And Will's a bigger frame person. Scott's a smaller guy, and Joel is kind of tall and lanky. But Joel would never even come close to winning on any of the monthly apps because his hip would hurt or something, and so he would log in. I think like his highest month was maybe 13 or 14 miles. And so as we get closer, I'm talking to Rachelle, and I'm like, Scott and I have been running, and of course Will got hurt, but Joel hasn't been running. Yeah. Is he going to be able to keep up with us? And once again, Joel, he did more obstacles than any of us, and a couple of times he was showing off for his wife, who was running for us, but he did more obstacles than any of us. He looked better than any of us. And then when we're all complaining of like post race like chills and fevers and all that stuff, he's like, I never had any of that, And so, but I mean, back to my point about meeting your goals. I mean, I live in northern Wisconsin, and it's harder to get out and run during the wintertime, but I'm still motivated, and I'm still getting out, and I'm not doing as many miles, but you feel better about yourself, and you feel you can do more things, and so yes, you look forward to the Tough Mudder events, but you also appreciate that fact that you have a little better health, and you want to keep it. You don't want to lose that, and so you keep running and you keep doing your exercises, and so it gives you a goal to look forward to next year, and you don't want to be the weakest link of the team, so you got to keep moving. So it's been really good for me personally.
Joel, any last thoughts? 2017, 2018?
Yeah, I'll echo what Nate said. It is very motivating, helps get you out of bed because there's a goal to work toward to improve your performance and abilities. But again, one of the big draws for me is just being with friends, old friends, lifelong friends, and enjoying that time together. Doing something difficult and challenging, but also encouraging each other, knowing that even if I am the weak link on this obstacle, my teammates aren't gonna be grumbling about that. They're with me doing the penalty together without complaining. So it was just a really unusual, neat time to bond through some pain, but also a lot of fun. And again, just it's motivating throughout the year to have a goal to work toward. And that's one reason I really appreciate and look forward to the World's Toughest Mudder.
Scott Forrester, Rachelle Swanson, Nate Swanson, Joel George, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Will.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Special thanks to Nate Swanson, Rachelle Swanson, Joel George, and Scott Forrester for appearing in this episode. Well done, team. You can leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you thought of my guest this episode. I will read it in a future episode. Don't forget, we've got 3 more this week as we continue Kickoff Week 2018. If you subscribe to the podcast, the new episodes will pop up on your phone automatically. Otherwise, you have to go in manually, and they're not available as soon as they are for subscribers. Thanks again. Go spend time with someone you love.
I don't think that'll be that exciting of a podcast, but